So hi everyone, we're here today with Tony Greco, our General Manager of Technical Policy at the IPA head offices. We've got training going on as well, a big active day here at the IPA sharing knowledge about your favourite topic, Tony, and that's tax. So you mentioned about the volume of change that's been happening throughout 2023. It was a big year of reform. The Parliament intently focused on ethics and trust. We saw changes to the Taxation Services Act and tax law amendment bills coming through. What other changes did you see in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't a lot of tax changes, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of work. I mean, the government does a lot of kite flying, a lot of proposals. So Division 296, which is the extra tax on balances above 3 mil. Now, we don't like the methodology. That's something that irks a lot of our members, that it's based on unrealised capital gains. That's something that just doesn't sit well with our established principles. So we will fight that tooth and nail. It has gone off to a Senate inquiry, and that's good because it needs much more scrutineering. It is the government's right to lessen the concessions on super. Let's respect that, but there are ways to do it that introduce a bit more fairness. So we don't like Division 296. Non-arm's length income, we spent almost 2 years of advocacy work on that and we lost basically. So we have to accept the outcome. We proposed a better way to achieve the mischief. The mischief was people putting in more into their super fund than the concessional caps allow. So that's the mischief. And it was it was heavily targeted at accountants, real estate agents, tradespeople who basically do work and don't charge their fund. We understood the mischief. We could have achieved the outcome through less law, and the principles were there. We could have treated it as a contribution and it would be subject to the caps. Job done. However, the government wanted to go down a different path. We couldn't convince Treasury that we could adequately address the mischief. So that it's disappointing after 2 years of advocacy work that it came to that end. But you know, we live another day. So just on some other things. Also, the small business energy incentive. That's something that again, it's not law. We're in March. And this piece of legislation, same with small business instant asset write-off, it's still not law. And it's really frustrating that we get almost probably the earliest it could happen is April, and we don't have that certainty, and it's about to end. So it's quite frustrating. And also, one of the bills introduced in March last year had to do with franking credit changes. We were fairly supportive of the off-market share buybacks, but not so much when it comes to franking of dividends funded through bank financing. That one had hairs all over it. So it did go off to a Senate hearing. We did get some adjustments, and that also had disqualified entities in it in relation to tax agents not being able to provide their services. And the unfortunate thing is we had some green amendments dropped in at the last, which are very problematic. But that's just a recap of 23.
Yeah. So 2024, it's we're right into it. It seems like 23 was a long time ago now. Yep. Tony, we've lodged our pre-budget submission, which is sort of hot off the press in terms of the IPA positioning going to the federal budget. Just a very brief outline as to why is this document so important as a platform for us to take those messages up to Canberra?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we represent, how we represent our members' voice to government, the government. That's why it's important. So the big ticket items, obviously, tax reform. We've got a narrow tax base. We've got too much of the burden on workers. That's not a good thing from a sustainability perspective. So we need to fix that at some point. But the other big ticket items are trusts. Trusts, or if you've got clients in trust, the administration burden on that particular entity has just gone through the roof. Now, obviously, you can not choose to put a new client into a trust structure, but those who have already got trust as part of their structures, the administration is just going to a point where it's becoming very difficult for that client to pay you to protect their interests. So we're looking for some reforms just to reflect that. And they're very popular vehicles in Australia. I mean, trusts you normally associate with passive income, but in relation to the Australian market, they are used predominantly by small business, and that's the problem. So we're looking for some relief there. We also want some scrutineering happening on the ATO itself. We just think all the scrutineering that happens right at this moment is after the event, after there's been a mishap, and we want that. We want less of that to happen, and we think the advisory board is warranted, especially an agency of its size and its impact on the community. That's something that it just belies belief, Andrew, that we don't have that in place, and it has been recommended in the past. It's unfinished work. The tacit changes that are coming down the line are quite influential for setting the regulatory framework for tax agents. So disqualified entities, we don't have too much of an issue with that conceptually, but the dob-in provisions, those late amendments by the Greens, very problematic. They don't start until the 1st of July 24, so we've got a little bit of time, but good intentions don't equal good law, and that's the problem we have. We had the retirement covenant proposal by Treasury. We want SMSFs out of that. Some of the other work that we're doing is that the financial advice deductibility, that ruling hasn't changed since 1995. So the world's changed since then. We're trying to convince the ATO through their ruling that more of what a financial advisor charges should be deductible. That's our core principle. So we're working on that. The Minister's ability to amend the professional code, again, it's moving from a principle-based to a prescriptive. It's really messy. This governs your code of conduct, and the TPB have already got on 5 pages what you should or shouldn't do from a professional conduct standpoint. And now we've got the Minister playing with that. We're not entirely convinced this is the right way to go. And the sanctions paper too, that looks at what the TPB can dish out if you're found to have done something wrong. In principle, we support a robust regime to rein in the bad apples. That's unquestioned. It's just that the sanctions paper that we have in front of us is probably going a little bit too far. So there's a little bit of we're looking at refining that somewhat. So they're just some of the things so far.
Well, and as part of the inquiries and the parliamentary inquiries we've had, Tony, we're focused on one word of proportionality.
Correct.
So that the responses the government has to the range of challenges from an ethics perspective and trust is proportionate, so that we don't necessarily have the same book of regulatory reform proposed for large entities and large firms being applied to a sole practitioner. So that's a challenge for regulators, that's a challenge for legislators to get that balance right, but we'll be certainly leading that voice of advocacy and trying to get some sense of reason and balance into the discussion. Change has to happen, we accept that, but it's making sure that it's not disproportionately affecting smaller practitioners who are the ones who will be more likely to bear most of the burden of these changes that are coming down the line. So, Tony, you mentioned about the volume of change. Sometimes people describe it as a small practitioner trying to drink from a fire hose, but then the amount of change and the velocity of the change. What would be your key message to a small practitioner, perhaps a member of the IPA who's trying to stay across these changes? What's the key message from you?
Well, the key message is you have to, it's quite a demanding profession. I think it's quite challenging to be on top of everything. I mean, a week in tax, I would challenge any other profession. The volume of rulings, cases, legislative changes, regulators telling us what's all of that is just overbearing, and we get it. And so there is an obligation on our members to, if you're not sure, then ask questions. So you've got to keep your knowledge level up. Things do change. And I think that's the most important, to keep up your CPD. The CPD is there so you can remain competent in the area that you're practicing. Once you branch out of that area, alarm bells should be ringing. You then either get some outside help or you undertake some specific training. So stay within the flags. I mean, the TPB have the Code of Professional Conduct. That's your starting point. Are you competent? One of those is competency, independence, all those other, integrity, all those other responsibilities. But essentially the message is maintain competence. And that's it's not easy, Andrew. I'll state the obvious. Things are constantly changing. There's not a lot of tax changes, but that doesn't mean there's no cases or amendments to rule in. So it is a quite unforgiving profession.
Yeah. So the key message there, I suppose, for members, as you're saying, Tony, is to engage, maximise the use of the community that we have as a professional community. So the My Community platform, really important platform for members as well to engage. You can actually interact with. We monitor that, so if there are issues coming up, Tony and the team and Vicky will monitor those issues coming through. So engage on My Community as well, and perhaps you can even share your insights with other practitioners as well, so you can use their experience. So we are a smaller community, but importantly, it's close-knit, and so being engaged and leaning into that's really important. Tony, I'll state the obvious, but thank you for all the work you do. I know 2023 was a tough year. Unfortunately for you and the team of advocates at the IPA, I don't think it's looking like 2024 is going to be feet up on the desk time. There's a fair bit of work coming down the line. But thanks for all the work you do in advocating for members, for analysing complex information and getting information to members to make sure they stay between those flags. So thank you to you and the team.
No, we thank our members. They're giving us the platform. We're their voice. We take that privilege seriously. We try to do the right thing by members. So thank you, Andrew.
So more information for members, check out publicaccountants.org.au. Have a look at the advocacy section of the website, news and advocacy as well, and you can find out how you can engage. And certainly if there are exposure drafts or commentary pieces, please feel free to give us those anecdotes and we can take them up for you all the way to Canberra and make sure your voice is heard loud and proud.